The province's police watchdog is investigating how a man fell to his death in Etobicoke while officers from York Region were executing a search warrant.
And a police officer is seriously injured while responding to a person in crisis. This is near Spadina and DuPont.
And drivers caught blocking intersections, they're now subject to much heftier penalties. We'll have reaction tonight.
And the Financial Accountability Office is looking into the Ford government's decision to speed up the expansion of alcohol sales in Ontario.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Sabit.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thank you for joining us. The death of a man while police were executing a search warrant in Etobicoke early this morning. That is now the subject of an SIU investigation.
CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan joins us live from the scene with the latest. Steve.
Yeah, Bakari, Alina, 205 Sherway Gardens Drive is the location. It's the condo building behind me here. Toronto police tell us that at 5 o'clock this morning, York Regional Police were executing a criminal code search warrant on the 11th floor of this building. Now, protocol would dictate that the York Police, of course, would let Toronto know that they were in their jurisdiction to execute this warrant at 5 o'clock this morning. And we are told that police were executing the warrant on the 11th floor. So if we use the tomato plants that are on the 10th floor, I'll try to give you an idea as to where and how this happened. Tomato plants are on the 10th floor. One floor above, of course, is the 11th floor. And if we go to the left, that far unit is the 11th floor unit where the warrant was executed. Now, while the police entered that unit, for reasons unknown at this point in time, a 21-year-old man went out onto the balcony, and then he appears to have scaled that balcony all the way back to where the tomato plants are. And I say that because when he fell directly underneath the direction of those tomato plants and landed on the fourth floor terrace. You can see the brickwork right now that we're showing you. That's the terrace on the 4th floor where this man fell to his death. So the SIU are now invoking their mandate because, of course, anytime there is an interaction with police and there is serious injury or death, as a result, the SIU critiques the actions of the police to make sure that everything was done within the procedures and within the law. Even knocking on the door to advise that the police were coming in to execute a warrant, that would be considered interaction. So the SIU now has taken the lead of this investigation, and York Police were down here today assisting the SIU with the forensic collection of evidence. I did speak with a tenant in that building earlier on today, and he describes what he saw and heard. Let's have a listen.
Over the last 12 years, there has been an increased number of renters, but overall, in the past 12 years, 13 years that I've been living here, it's been generally a great neighborhood.
When a criminal code search warrant is executed, the police are required by law to knock on the door and make an announcement that they're coming in, and then they can breach that door. Or they can get special permission from the court to go unannounced. And they ask for that oftentimes if there is concern for officer safety or if there's evidence on the other side that they are afraid it's going to get destroyed while they make that announcement. So it appears at some point in time between the police breaching that door and getting into that condo unit that the 21-year-old man decided to scale that balcony, and for reasons unknown at this time, he fell, landing on the 4th floor, and at 8:30 this morning in hospital, he was pronounced deceased. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, so the province's police watchdog now leading this investigation. Steve Ryan, live in Etobicoke tonight. Steve, thanks so much.
Well, also, a police officer has been seriously injured responding to a person in crisis downtown.
Police say the officer was injured by broken glass around 1:15 this afternoon near Spadina and DuPont. They were rushed to hospital via emergency run, and they are currently in surgery. A woman was arrested at the scene. Stay with us for the latest on this story.
And the first teenager to be sentenced in the death of a Toronto homeless man will not face further time in custody. The girl, who pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was 13 at the time of the 2022 attack on Kenneth Lee, was credited for 15 months of effective pretrial custody. She'll serve another 15 months of probation under an intensive support and supervision program. Lee, who was 59 and living in the city shelter system, died after he was swarmed and stabbed near University and Front. 3 other teens have pleaded guilty in the case, and another 4 are set to stand trial next year.
Well, it is a long-standing problem contributing to downtown gridlock, drivers who block intersections when the lights turn red. Will bigger fines help, though? The city certainly hopes so.
The CP24's Andrew Brennan joins us live with this story. Andrew.
Yeah, Bakari, Lena, we are right now at University, or actually, no, we're at Spadina. So let's try that again. We're at Spadina and Front Street. It's so bad, there's actually an advertisement over there that talks about how annoying it is to be at this intersection. Let us look at what it looks like now. We do have a few traffic constables that are here. It's making things a little bit better when they are around. And let's just go through a little bit of what it means to block the box. So you see how you have a few cars here. Light's still green, so they shouldn't be in the intersection. That is still illegal. However, they'll likely get through based on how traffic's been flowing. However, what ends up happening is that when especially you don't have traffic constables around, a few people get stuck in the intersection because they decided to go into it when they didn't have the room to get out. And then the other direction of traffic, the perpendicular traffic, is going to have a few problems. That's one thing. The second problem is the people that aren't in giant metal contraptions that weigh thousands of pounds. Vulnerable road users, pedestrians, cyclists. We've talked to a few people today that say categorically they're on board with more fines. Some of them not saying it's a little too much to have it be $450. However, they do all agree this is a problem. Take a listen here.
It's a bit steep, but yeah, there should be a punishment because they block the street.
So you say
I drive and I walk, and I understand both parts. Yes, it's frustrating, creates lots of traffic jam.
Trying to walk one way, like even trying to cross this street here, like there's only one area where I can cross this way, right? Like we're not supposed to actually cross that way because of all of these cars turning left, and it causes a nuisance, right? For us, we have to end up waiting the extra time. It shouldn't be hard to commute. Like obviously I don't live downtown, I don't have a car. That's for a reason, so that you can walk everywhere. But this just ends up being a mess.
How rude people are and how inconsiderate, because they're selfish. They don't worry about pedestrians, they don't worry about cyclists, they don't worry about oncoming traffic, so they block the oncoming traffic. Buses, by the time the buses got out, the lights have changed.
And in terms of what has changed now, fines are $450 for intersections like these. And then for those around community safety zones, they go up to $500. Now, this is all a bit of a piecemeal part of dealing with the larger problem. And the city is trying to figure out its congestion management. There's a new report that's going to be coming from city staff to council later this week. We'll see how things go. That's all I can say about that. Back to you.
All right. Andrew Brennan live in the streets tonight. Andrew, thanks so much for this.
Okay, right now it's time to get a check on the commute, and for that we turn to CP24's traffic specialist Adjoa and CIU. Good evening.
Oh, good evening, Bakari and Lena. We had some problems and things are getting a little bit better. Sometimes I'm not always a bearer of bad news. We had issues on the northbound lanes of the 400 is north of the 401. Our right lane was out. It was following a stall. Everything did clear, and and so did the delay. So that's some good news. Can't really say the same about the 401. We are in the thick of rush hours, so it's very busy as you navigate across the top of the city. All earlier issues have cleared, and then as you head further east, typically slow as you make your way in towards Durham. And the slow pockets continue now on the actual southbound Don Valley Parkway. Gonna have to check my cameras in my next update, but there could be something going on. This is unusually busy. On city streets, at last check, we were dealing with a collision on Jane and Steeles. Lena, Bakari, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Adjoa.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
All right, to Queen's Park now. This is where the Financial Accountability Office of Ontario is probing the Ford government's decision to accelerate alcohol expansion.
And for a closer look at this, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan. This is something the Liberals have been calling for. Melissa.
Yeah, it is. So I'm on Richmond in Parliament right now, outside of one of the many gas stations across our province, along with convenience stores that are now selling alcohol, beer, wine, ready-to-drink cocktails. And they've been for sale since September 5th. Now, I want to go back to May. That's when Premier Doug Ford announced that this move was going to happen, that the expansion of alcohol sales in our province is going to be sped up a little. We were expecting it to happen a year down the road. So here's the deal. The province had an exclusive deal with the beer store that was expected to expire in a year from now. Well, to end that deal early, the province paying the beer store $225 million so that this move of expanding booze sales in our province can happen earlier than expected. So that's the background here. Now we understand, learning today, that Ontario's Financial Accountability Office is looking into this deal. Premier Doug Ford today speaking in Windsor, defending the move. Have a listen.
I think it's a great deal, but let me go back until people understand the FOA. They were contacted by the Liberals, our opposition, and Bonnie Crombie has made it abundantly clear that she wants to add tens of millions of dollars of cost on the backs of the people because they're going to pay for it. She doesn't believe in putting beer and wine in a corner store, and she just wants to add to the cost of a bottle of beer, a bottle of wine, some coolers. She wants to increase taxes. I don't believe in that.
So we are hearing from the Liberals today is that they weren't against this expansion of alcohol sales in our province. It's the speeding up of it, the idea that paying $225 million to make this happen sooner, they saying that taxpayer money shouldn't have been spent this way. We're getting some analysis from CTV political commentator Scott Reid today. Here's some of what he's telling us.
We will get clarity on exactly how much the price tag is to have moved up this deal. So there are reports that it's $250 million. There are reports that it's $1 billion. Some people say $1.2 billion. So let's get at least some clarity on that. The government hasn't been quick to actually shed light on it. The FAO should. But the second and related issue is the motivation. I mean, we know, and it's apparent, that the government moved this up not because it wanted to get beer and wine into corner stores even faster, but because it wanted to do so prior to an election that they want to call next year.
So this expansion of alcohol, by the way, to gas stations like the one behind me and convenience stores, it's only been in effect now for a week and a half, certainly still under the microscope, going to stay that way as well. As for when, Lena and Bakari, we're going to hear back from Ontario's Financial Accountability Office, the FAO. That's expected to happen sometime early in the new year if they get all the information that they need in time. Back to you.
Yeah, and of course, it'll be important to learn more about that price tag. Melissa Duggan reporting live tonight. Melissa, thanks so much. 512, 27 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And coming up, why the Ontario Medical Association is concerned about the province allowing pharmacists to treat more ailments. Physicians are raising concerns today about the province allowing pharmacists to treat more and more ailments.
Yeah, let's bring in CP24's Phil Perkins with more on what the Ontario Medical Association is saying tonight. Phil.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lena Bakari. It seems like the OMA feels that this is a Band-Aid type solution. The fact that 2.5 million Ontarians at last check do not have a family doctor right now. We understand wait times in ERs are super long. So they feel that the Ontario government suggesting that pharmacists at your local pharmacy could be now given more what they're referring to as mild ailments to look at, to diagnose, to prescribe medication for would help to help the situation here. And this would not be new for pharmacists in this province. It started back last year. They were given 13 minor ailments like pink eye, UTIs, acne, canker sores to look at, and they feel that they can add a lot more to the plate. They can look at and diagnose stuff like sore throats, mild headaches, shingles, minor sleep disorders, fungal infections, nail infections, lice. Also increase the amount of vaccinations they can do on top of COVID and the flu shot. They're also suggesting that they can also administer tetanus, shingles, RSV, which affects a lot of newborns as well. And so the OMA feels like, and they're saying pretty bluntly, that pharmacists are not doctors. And we spoke with the president of the OMA, and this is what they had to say about this.
Our healthcare system is in crisis. 2.5 million people can't find a family doctor. And rather than looking at Band-Aid solutions, what we're advocating for is let's find everybody a family doctor and let's have health professionals working together for their care. And when I think about some of the ailments here, like sore throat, like headache, the number of times that someone's come into my office, I'm a family doctor, with that as the presentation, but it ended up being something serious. It takes a doctor to know that. That's our bottom line here.
And Justin Bates, CEO of the Ontario Pharmacist Association, agrees that, there is an issue with the Ontario health system right now, but the CEO of the OMA didn't have to say it like that. He spoke to us earlier.
I'm disappointed in some of the messaging coming out from some small cohort of doctors who are pushing back on this notion that there is a patient safety risk or somehow pharmacists are not trained or educated to do this. I really believe that is unfounded. If you look at the evidence, Ontario is one of the last provinces to enable scope of practice along these lines for pharmacists. Pharmacists have also hours and hours of training, education on prescribing and medication management. And in no way is this having pharmacists become doctors.
Yeah, can everybody get along? We're not sure, but we also understand that family physicians talk about how lately the average amount of administration work that they're doing every week is around 19 hours a week on admin work. So try to spread the wealth, but it seems like if these two can get along, we'll have to see. Back to you.
It really comes down to that burden placed on healthcare workers and that backlog. Phil Perkins reporting live from our newsroom tonight. Thanks, Phil. And let's stay with healthcare. Workers at SickKids, they held a rally this afternoon calling on their employer to commit to a better pension system.
Solidarity! Well, union members say that when many SickKids employees retire, they're left with a pension that they can barely survive on. And SickKids, it's not part of the Healthcare of Ontario pension plan, which almost every other hospital in the province participates in. Workers say that they simply want SickKids to join the plan, which would provide them a decent retirement package.
The main reasons the hospital has chosen not to do that is financial on their part. They feel that the money isn't as well spent, and it is sad to see our staff members who could easily be working across the street at Mount Sinai or across the street at UHN or down the street at St. Mike's, who do get that pension, and we're the only ones not. We do the same work, we do the same, have the same risks, we take on the same responsibilities, yet we're not being given the same compensation.
The staff that work at SickKids, they are dedicated workers. So it doesn't matter what happened, we will always be there to give the best care to our patient and their family. So even though the pension sucks here at SickKids, and I can tell you, we have a lot of nurses and professional staff who will be leaving SickKids because the hospital decided that they're not going to be doing better with their pension. And so a lot of the good staff are already leaving SickKids.
The union says that SickKids has been on a pension holiday. It hasn't made any contributions to the pension plan out of the, last 25 to 27 years?
It is now 5:18, 27 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
MPs are back in the House of Commons today as the fall session of Parliament begins. Just ahead, there was an early clash over the federal carbon tax.
Welcome back. The fall session of Parliament began today.
It's expected to be a busy and precarious sitting for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Liberals. This is after the New Democrats broke their political pact with them. The Conservatives, they've been calling for an early election, and leader Pierre Poilievre is already committed to testing Parliament's confidence in the Liberals at the first opportunity. So on the first day of the fall session, opposition leader Poilievre once again went after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau over the carbon tax.
Children are hungrier than ever after 9 years of the NDP Liberals. In fact, 25% of them are not getting enough food, and we now know why. A carbon tax fraud has been perpetrated by this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, who kept secret Environment Canada documents that showed that the carbon tax was blowing a $25 billion hole in our economy. Our economy per capita is smaller today than it was 10 years ago, during which time the American economy has grown by 19%. Instead of a reckless plan to hike the tax to 61 cents a litre, why not allow Canadians to vote to axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Here's a news flash for the Conservative leader. Climate change costs money. And what would cost the most money to Canadians at all is his do-nothing climate plan. News flash. When the Toronto subway gets flooded, it costs money. News flash. When forest fires hit communities across this country, it costs Canadians money to rebuild. When you have droughts that hit farmers and agriculturists across this country, it costs money. What doesn't cost money is putting money in 8 out of 10 of the money of Canadians' pockets with the Canada Carbon Rebate to support their families and fight climate change.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh outlined his party's priorities for the upcoming parliamentary session today.
Canadians believe in looking out for one another. They believe in taking care of their neighbors. We believe that everyone in our country should be able to get a good job, a job that ensures they can pay the bills, put food on the table for their family, they can find a home that they can afford. But sadly, that is not the way things are right now. We're seeing more and more the cost of living has driven up so high that people are struggling to buy the groceries that they need, to find a home that they can afford. And people are telling us again and again that they are fed up with and frustrated with Justin Trudeau.
2 federal by-elections are being held today, one in Montreal, the other in Winnipeg. Winnipeg's Elmwood-Trascona seat that was formerly held by the NDP, but polls suggest growing conservative support. In the Montreal seat, the Liberals and Bloc Québécois are expected to be in close contention. The Conservatives, they took over a Liberal stronghold in another by-election in Toronto, St. Paul's. That was earlier this summer, leading to questions about Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's leadership.
It is 5:25, 27 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
And coming up, James Addiction has scrapped the rest of their tour after 2 bandmates, they got into a fight on stage.
Welcome back. Now to some heated moments on stage. Alternative rock band Jane's Addiction has canceled its tour, including a show in Toronto this week, after an onstage scuffle between band members.
Okay, so here's the video. It shows singer Perry Farrell and guitarist Dave Navarro getting into a physical altercation on stage. This was during a show in Boston on Friday. Farrell was then dragged away by members of the crew. The show was called off shortly after. In a brief statement today, the band says that it's made the difficult decision to step away from each other as a group and that the remainder of the tour is canceled. Farrell's wife says that he'd been frustrated that the music was too loud and his voice was getting drowned out by the band.
Well, Tito Jackson, one of the brothers who made up the Jackson 5, has died.
And Tito was the third of 9 Jackson children, which include global superstars Michael and Jackson, as well as Latoya. The family group, which was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997, produced several #1 hits in the 1970s, including ABC, I Want You Back, and I'll Be There. Tito Jackson was 70.
It's 5:28, 27 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Drivers caught blocking intersections are now subject to much heftier penalties. We're going to tell you how much coming up. The province's police watchdog is investigating how a man fell to his death in Etobicoke. This is why officers from York Region, they were executing a search warrant.
A police officer is seriously injured while responding to a person in crisis near Spadina and DuPont.
Well, drivers caught blocking intersections are now subject to much heftier penalties.
And the Financial Accountability Office is looking into the Ford government's decision to speed up the expansion of alcohol sales in Ontario. We'll tell you more about that.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Latafat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. It's a long-time problem contributing to downtown gridlock. Drivers who block intersections when the light turns red. Lena?
Yeah, will bigger fines help? The city certainly hopes so. CP24's Andrew Brunnan joins us live with the details and reaction. Andrew.
Yeah, and defense of Lena. I heard that, Bakari. I'm going to say that I believe that Lena is above reproach. And you too, you know you're my favorites. Okay, let's get back on track. So looking as we are right here, you can see right now we have a few traffic wardens in the street. Very helpful, because when we have not seen them here, as we've been at Front and Spadina this afternoon, let's just say that there's been a few cars, and by a few I mean a lot, who happen to have blocked traffic for another direction of drivers trying to get home or wherever they need to be during rush hour. So what the city is doing right now is they're increasing the fines. They are increased now, by the way. You'll start seeing signs tomorrow to $450 from $85 for blocking the intersection. For anyone who gets caught, and also if there's a police constable nearby to actually give the ticket, they'll get $450 under this new plan. And near a school or community safety zones, it is $500. Now, I did mention about the police constable bit because these traffic wardens, they are called traffic officers or traffic constables, but they aren't actually police constables. They can't issue tickets themselves. It has to be a police officer who does it. So when we talk about enforcement, actually having people who aren't following the rules be ticketed with this giant deterrent, that in and of itself is another hurdle here. This is what we heard earlier from a police inspector.
What we've done with the traffic agent program is we put them in at a designated time. They're not 24/7. And that's how you use the best out of your resources. Let the analytics tell you when they need to be and where they need to be. Put them in place, pull them back.
Does it get a time being rush hour, peak hours?
Sure, yeah, that's it. That'd be a great start for us. And I think we've seen it out this morning. During the press conference, I was listening to how often I heard their whistle. And I told them, use the whistle. Let the guy in the car that's doing something right, he's done everything right, I want him hearing that whistle. Because 2 weeks from now, he might be blocking a bike lane. He might be blocking an intersection. And so I think it resonates with people.
So the mayor said that this kind of behavior is not only a nuisance, but actually dangerous. What do Torontonians think? This is what they told us.
I think to make people safe is very important to us. Well, I'm not sure $500 is quite a big penalty.
I think the problem wasn't how much is it. It's the problem that they're not implementing it. There are nobody to give tickets. I've seen lots of people blocking streets and nobody's there. That's more the issue than the money. But 500 is too much money because some poor guy might get caught and it's not fair.
I approve. I live right opposite York and Harbour, and the traffic there is horrendous.
So the fine it is now $450. What do you think?
Should be 1,000.
Now, this is not an isolated problem when it comes to congestion. Toronto also does have some of the worst congestion in North America. It's documented by study after study. So how do you fix that? You can't just fix one thing. The city is looking at congestion mediation. How that will look remains to be seen. There is a city staff report coming to council later on this week. We'll have to see if that does any difference to the long commutes. Back to you.
All right, Andrew Brennan, thanks so much for this. It's now 5:34, 27 degrees. Let's get an update on that long commute with Adjoa and CIU. Wow.
Yeah, it continues to be a slow go, and I did watch a problem clear. I was just trying to get it on camera, but it's gone. It was on the westbound lanes of the 401. Alina and Bakari, it was in the collector lanes right at Victoria Park. With the right lane out with the situation, the problems have cleared. Hard to show you. My arrows are out, so I can't use them. Rest of the 401, though, it's been busy right across the top of the city. Typically slow on the DVP north, not so much on the southbound side. I did end up checking. Nothing going on. It's just volume delays. And if you're traveling outside of camera view towards the 403 eastbound, this is right around Waterdown Road. Crews on scene of a stalled vehicle. It does have the right lane blocked. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks, Adj.
Welcome.
The death of a man while police were executing a search warrant in Etobicoke early this morning is now the subject of an SIU investigation. CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan joined us live from the scene with the latest. Steve.
Bakari, according to Toronto Police, this happened at 5 o'clock this morning. 205 Sherway Gardens Drive is the location. It's the condo building behind me. Now, Toronto Police tell us that it was York Regional Police that were down here in the Toronto jurisdiction executing a criminal code search warrant at 5 o'clock this morning on the 11th floor. So I'll point to you where this occurred. I'm going to use the tomato plants on the 10th floor balcony. So right above those tomato plants and over to the left is the 11th story condo unit where the warrant was executed. Now, for reasons unknown at this time, once the police breached the door, a 21-year-old man appears to have scaled the balcony. And I say that because we'll go back across to the side where the tomato plants are. And for reasons unknown, this man fell from the 11th floor, but he fell directly underneath those tomato plants and landed on a 4th floor terrace. That is where he succumbed to his injuries. He was rushed to hospital, but he died as a result. So because this is an interaction between the police and a citizen where death has occurred, the SIU has now invoked their mandate, and their job will be to critique the actions of the York Regional Police to ensure that they followed all procedures, protocols, and acted within the law. So we don't know why this man decided to scale the balcony right now, other than we can presume that he was trying to evade the police once he was made aware that they were either coming into the house or had gained entrance into that house, and he lost his balance and fell onto the 4th floor. I spoke with a resident in this building earlier on today, and here is some of what he told me. Let's listen.
Early in the morning, I heard just a thump or some sort of a crash, some sort of a noise I couldn't quite recognize. I didn't really think much of it at the time, but I did hear some neighbors' dogs barking for a bit. And I just assumed maybe it was some construction, early morning construction or something. But it was kind of abnormal. I'd never heard something like that, particularly that time of day. I thought maybe someone was moving or whatnot.
So he's talking about 5 o'clock in the morning. This man heard the commotion that was going on, and it wasn't until he saw the news at 10 a.m. that he looked out of his window and saw what he described as blood on the 4th floor terrace. So when the police execute a search warrant, very quickly, I'll explain this to you. When they execute a criminal code search warrant, they are required to knock on the door and identify themselves as police before they breach that door, or they can do it without making an announcement if they get special authorization from the court, and they can do that so they can preserve whatever evidence is on the other side. They don't want that destroyed by acknowledging that they are in fact present and they're coming through the door. So we don't know which one of those two took place, but what we do know is that a warrant was executed and the man fell to his death, appears to have been trying to evade the police as they were executing this criminal code search warrant. Lena, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Steve, thank you for this. Well, a police officer has serious injuries after responding to a person in crisis call. It happened downtown. Police say the officer was suffering a gash to the arm from broken glass in a door around 1:15 this afternoon near Spadina and DuPont. They were rushed to hospital via emergency run and required emergency surgery. A woman was arrested at the scene and is charged with assaulting the officer. Well, a stretch of the 403 in Burlington was closed for hours today after a fatal motorcycle crash. It happened shortly before 10 o'clock this morning in the eastbound lanes of the 403 just past Waterdown Road. Police say a motorcycle collided with another vehicle and the rider was pronounced dead on scene.
Well, OPP say that the body of a 12-year-old boy who went missing in the water in Penetanguishene has been recovered. Well, the search began around noon yesterday. That's when the boy disappeared while swimming in the Penetang Harbor at Huronia Park. The police and fire carried out a land and water search. Divers located his body just after 7 o'clock. The chief coroner is investigating the cause of death. And the first teenager to be sentenced in the death of a Toronto homeless man will not face further time in custody. The girl, who pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was 13 at the time of the 2022 attack on Kenneth Lee, was credited for 15 months of effective pretrial custody. She'll serve another 15 months of probation under an intensive support and supervision program. Lee, who was 59 and living in the city's shelter system, died after he was swarmed and stabbed near University in Front. 3 other teens have pleaded guilty in the case. Another 4 are set to stand trial next year.
Well, Peel Regional Police, they hosted the 2nd annual Safety of Our Cities conference today. The summit brings together police chiefs from across North America, as well as stakeholders from a variety of community sectors to discuss progressive, innovative, and inclusive approaches to public safety. The conference aims to explore how policing has evolved and how to best address the root causes of societal problems.
The whole value of all these different chiefs of police plus other sectors together is that concept of none of us is as smart as all of us. I don't know if that's grammatically correct or not, but the reality is we're learning from each other in ways that transcend municipal, provincial, Canadian, international boundaries. And I think the public needs to know that the way police are looking at public safety is completely changed. We know that we have to be there in crisis, but we also know there's spaces for us to be with other entities to turn the dial down on all the pressure.
We also have partners in care where we look at people that have a mental health crisis and we partner with other agencies, with other counselors, and when someone's having a medical episode, it's treated as such. It's not treated as a crime, and we're able to do that. And then the fire department has a non-police approach. We do that as a city. So when someone calls for a mental health crisis, it could actually be our co-response, or it could be the fire department that comes with EMS to treat people as well in a non-traditional approach, but it's working in Nashville.
Experts within social service, public health, government, and private sectors will also take part in this 3-day conference.
Right now it's 5:41, 27 degrees. This is Live at 5.
The Ford government's decision to accelerate the expansion of alcohol sales in convenience stores, that is coming under closer scrutiny. The details are coming up. Welcome back to Queen's Park now, where the Financial Accountability Office of Ontario is probing the Ford government's decision to accelerate alcohol expansion.
For a closer look, we go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan. Melissa.
Hey there, Bakari. So I'm outside of a gas station on Richmond near Parliament right now. It's one of many, along with convenience stores across the province, that have been seeing the sale of beer, of wine, of ready-to-drink cocktails available for customers as of about a week and a half ago now. That move happening a year earlier than the provincial government had originally planned. And that move did not come without a cost, about $225 million that went out to the beer store. Basically, the Ontario government ended a deal that they had with the beer store a year early, and that money went to them to kind of secure jobs, that sort of thing. Part of the move, anyway, is what Ford explained, Premier Doug Ford. Now we're hearing from the Liberals they want that move to be examined. So Ontario's Financial Accountability Office is looking into it. We are expecting some results from their review sometime early in the new year. Doug Ford, of course, defending the province's move. We're going to hear more from him in a second. But first, here's the Liberals' take.
Why is the government doing this 1 year earlier than planned? If they had just let things run their course, the deal would have ended at the end of December 2025, and they could have entered into a new agreement on where beer and wine, et cetera, is sold. Instead, they canceled this deal a year early, and it will have a cost. It absolutely has a cost to break the contract, and then there are other costs related to licensing fees, volume discounts, et cetera. So why do this? If it's only to get beer in beer stores a year early, why spend that taxpayer money when you didn't need to?
Bonnie Crombie, all she believes in is taxing the people, taking money out of their pockets, taking money out of companies' pockets until they don't invest. Remember, folks, 6 years ago, the Liberals chased 300,000 jobs out of our province. Just think of that, 300,000. There's over 600,000 more people working today than there was 6 years ago. I apologize, it was 800,000.
Now, the Ontario Financial Accountability Office, or FAO, it's an independent body. It looks into how the provincial government spends its funds. I also want to mention something to Bakari and Lena as we look ahead to the expansion of more alcohol sales in our province. The next phase is expected to begin Halloween, October 31st. That's when more grocery stores and big box stores getting their licenses and able to sell alcohol. Back to you.
Okay, CP24's Melissa Duggan. Melissa, thank you. Well, Brampton says that it's making strides on cracking down on slum landlords, but more needs to be done. So Brampton's been piloting a residential rental unit licensing program in several wards in order to hold landlords accountable to safe standards of living. Landlords operating 1 to 4 rental units are required to register for a license and have proper ventilation, fire alarms, and electrical work.
If international students coming here and spending $20,000 on tuition and then living in slum dangerous conditions, that's not part of the Canadian dream. There are so many examples of international students achieving extraordinary success in Canada, but it's not fair to allow those conditions to exist, and having an honest conversation about the cost and responsibilities around housing is part of this.
And Brampton's mayor, you just heard him right there, Patrick Brown, says that councillors in the remaining wards, they have shown interest in the landlord residential program becoming permanent citywide.
It is now 5:48, 27 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And coming up, the latest on the apparent assassination attempt on former U.S. President Donald Trump.
More details are emerging about an apparent assassination attempt of Donald Trump at his Florida golf course.
Keep walking!
Body cam footage shows the arrest of the suspect, Ryan Wesley Routh. This is on a Florida highway yesterday. He faces federal gun charges and additional charges are possible. Well, Routh was spotted by a Secret Service agent in a tree line at Trump's West Palm Beach Golf Club in Florida. He fled when the agent fired shots at him and was later arrested nearly 60 kilometers away. Officials updated their investigation today.
More specifically, we're continuing to conduct analysis and will be compiling the subject's movements in the days and months leading up to September 15th. Cellular data shows that the subject was in the vicinity of the golf course roughly 12 hours before the engagement with the United States Secret Service. Our investigative teams conducted a neighborhood canvass in an effort to collect and obtain relevant video footage.
As former President Trump was moving through the fifth fairway across the course and out of sight of the sixth green, the agent, who was visually sweeping the area of the sixth green, saw the subject armed with what he perceived to be a rifle and immediately discharged his firearm. The subject, who did not have line of sight to the former president, fled the scene. He did not fire or get off any shots at our agent.
And while leaving the White House today, U.S. President Joe Biden commented on the apparent assassination attempt.
God, the president's okay. I think we got a full report so far. We're down there tonight. But one thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help. And I think the Congress should respond to their needs if they, in fact, need more services. Officials recovered an AK-47 style rifle with a scope, 2 backpacks, and a GoPro camera at the scene yesterday. Right now, it's 5:53, 27 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, we'll talk to a U of T professor about the city's Don't Block the Box campaign and whether it'll make a difference. This is the live shot of the drive home. We'll be right back.
A big jump in fines for drivers caught in an intersection when the lights turn red.
Yeah, and for a closer look at this and whether or not it's really going to make a difference, we're joined live by Maddie Semioticki, director of the Infrastructure Institute and professor of geography and planning at the University of Toronto. Maddie, always good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Everybody in Toronto knows this is one of the worst ways to be stuck in traffic. What do you think of the idea of raising fines? What message do you think that sends drivers?
I think raising the fines is really important. It sends a message that blocking the box, jamming up traffic is not acceptable and there will be fines. Now, the key with everything is whether they're enforced. As long as the fines aren't enforced, they'll always be seen as something for people that blocking the box is optional, and they'll do it when it's in their interest. So this is a good first step, and now we need the enforcement to really back it up.
Okay, so you just mentioned a good first step. How does this compare with, traffic mitigation methods for other cities?
Other cities are doing so much more than we are. Other cities are bringing in things like road tolls as a way to both generate revenue and encourage people to carpool and use other modes of transportation. Other cities are using automated cameras in order to pick up on these fines so that it's not up to someone just standing out there and hoping that they catch people. We have automated fares or automated fines at traffic lights where for 50,000 people were getting caught. We've given out 100 fines for blocking the box in the last 7 months. This is nothing. This is why people continue to go along blocking the box, because the chance of getting caught are very slim. Other cities are taking this much more seriously than we are, and they're getting better results.
Yeah, as you said, enforcement will be key here. Running out of time here. We've got about a minute left. The city, though, says Toronto's gridlock problem is improving, Maddie. This after it introduced traffic agents, dedicated bus lanes on Spadina. You can also now turn from Lakeshore onto Spadina, and now this. Is the city's plan working? Is the plan good enough?
This is really an intermediate step. What I often think of is 30% or 40% off a major problem is still a major problem. And these trips are taking way too long. The gridlock is still intense. This is a good step, but we need much deeper action in order to get the types of results that are really going to get this city moving around quicker. We're a big city now. There's going to be congestion, but so much more can be done to make sure that this city is a place that's livable and people can get around.
All right, Maddie Semioticki, director of the Infrastructure Institute and professor of geography and planning at the University of Toronto. Thank you.
All right, Maddie,
Thanks
we
for having
so
me.
appreciate your time. Want to get to another story for you tonight, if we can get to that. This has to do with transit. The TTC has planned early closures on part of Line 1 this week.
A service between York Mills and St. Clair stations will end nightly at 11 until Friday. This is so that crews can do work on the tracks. The shuttle buses will be running. Regular service will resume each morning at 6.
It is now 5:58, 27 degrees, feeling more like 30 out there. Lots of sunshine in the city. It's a gorgeous night, and you've been watching Live at 5 right here on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
CTV News at 6 is next.
Thanks so much for joining us, and enjoy the fabulous conditions. We'll be back at 7.